Rise, Tarnished, and welcome to the Soulsbuds podcast, where two buds rest at a bonfire to yap all things Souls games, the genre we love most. We're your hosts, Eric Shulkin.
Levi Winslow.
Hey, hi Levi. Really happy we're doing this, man.
Yeah, me too. It's about time.
Seriously. So, okay, this is episode 1, our maiden voyage,
Inaugural episode.
Exactly. So
First of many.
If we're like first of many, no doubt. If we're like the good ship USS Soulsbuds, we're like cracking a thing of champagne on the side. We're like waving from the harbor, goodbye, bye.
Right.
Like
see
the
you later.
Ship's going off to sea. Perhaps the people want to know who are we? How did this come about?
Where did we come from?
Well, that's a lot.
That's too deep. No, just kind of like our background, right? A little bit about who we are.
Yeah.
Kind of our entry points into Souls games, why we're doing this in the first place, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Where do we get off even, to talk to the people as Soulsbuds? I suppose, I'll start.
Go ahead.
We're linked. So we're both former colleagues, now friends from Kotaku.com. I was the former video lead. You were a former writer. And we've collaborated on many videos and had many newsroom conversations or just, everyday life conversations about this genre, about Souls-likes. And, in a way that was kind of the, what shall I say, the primer.
Impetus. If you will. It was really the impetus of what eventually became this podcast.
Oh, you are a writer. Good word. Yeah. The impetus, exactly. And, after we both were laid off, shall we say.
Not shall we say. Shall we say. Can't say that. Say that 5 times fast.
After we entered free agency.
There we go.
By the decision of our former employer. We've, been hanging out in the time since, and we kind of just got to talking one day. We were hanging out with our producer, Artem, at the Coffee Inn. Shout out the Coffee Inn.
Shout out to Coffee Inn.
A little small on the inside, but good food. They got a lot of outdoor seating. So
good coffee.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's the point.
Maybe we'll go back there. It's getting nicer.
I think we should. Maybe we'll do our, 100th episode there or something.
Wow, you're okay.
I'm thinking way ahead.
Yeah, I love that. Coffee
But
Inn.
yeah, Coffee Inn.
Not a sponsor of this podcast. Yeah, we just kind of got to talking, hey, what's something we would love to talk about, and just comes totally natural to us, and that's Souls-likes, man.
Yeah, have all this time in the world, might as well use the time for something creative, and why not turn it into a podcast? That's essentially what we were doing at Kotaku. Every time we would make a video, it'd round up becoming this discussion around the nature of Souls games. Me being a staff writer at Kotaku, I spent a lot of time writing about Souls games, both from the perspective of a player and the perspective of a viewer, because I'd watch a speed run, or I'd just sit in r/Dark Souls to see what the engagement was happening, the conversations that were going on, things like that. So really, I just have such a love for this genre, even though, whoo, girl, it is a pain in the ass.
Nah, it doesn't always.
It does not love you back.
No.
That's for sure.
In fact, it almost never does.
No, never does.
I would say.
But yeah, it ended up being a pitch, Soulsbuds soapbox initially. That was unfortunately rejected. And then we said, we'll do a podcast. Here we are.
I feel like our intro is full of then this bad thing happened. Then there's this bad thing that happened. But this is how sometimes, the mother of invention is necessity and
right.
And trauma.
If we want to take it back to the theme, isn't that exactly how Souls games are made, right? You start, let's say Elden Ring, you start in Limgrave, oh, this bad thing happened, found the Sentinel, got your ass whooped. Mm-hmm. Then you're like, okay, I'll respawn. Then this next bad thing happens. Maybe you found your way to Caelid. You respawn.
On and so forth, yeah.
Yeah, so on and so forth. And then eventually you beat the boss.
Live, die, repeat. Well, I like that little transition you got going on there for us. So Souls games, I don't know if we need to define for people, if they're tuning into this podcast, what a Souls game is, a Souls-like. I mean, perhaps there's almost a judicial precedent, when they first ruled porn in the first place. You know it when you see it.
Right. I imagine there's a dictionary at this point on Souls games. I don't think we need to explain it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're tuning into this, either you love us, thank you. You love
you
Souls-like, yeah, moi. or both. So that's great. I think I'd like for us to talk about, what was our first entry point into this genre of Souls likes of Souls games?
Well, again, I really want you to start because you have a very interesting entry point.
Oh, you're being polite right now. Okay,
Yes, I am
so
being polite.
you're alluding to when we had our pre-production meeting, I actually, shared what my first Souls-like game was, and you started going off on me. Just really started laying into me.
I wouldn't put it like that, but maybe just a little bit.
In a jovial, lighthearted nature, I would
Yes.
say. And I said our mantra now, hey, save the juice for the pot,
Save the juice.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll share it now. My first Souls like was actually Neo, developed by Team Ninja.
2017.
Yeah, 2017, 2016, around thereabouts. Is this going to be the first thing we look up?
First thing you look up. I'm pretty sure it's 2017.
You're right. Hey, should we keep a running tally of all the times I'm wrong?
We could definitely do that. But yeah, no, I just think it's so fascinating because that's such a, it's a more recent Souls game.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Recent being 7 years, 8 years, but it's recent. Okay, it's recent.
pretty recent. I did not experience the mainline Souls games, the From Software offerings,
Right.
that people know: Demon Souls, Dark Souls,
The trilogy,
1 through
the Holy
3.
Trinity,
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right?
Father, Son, Holy Bonfire.
Holy Bonfire, my bad. I had heard of them before. I had always, loved and enjoyed action RPGs growing up, a big Diablo 2 player. I love difficult games. I love torturing myself. Masochist, yes. We'll find out more about that over the course of this podcast
I think so.
series.
It might end up becoming like a psychology podcast at some point.
This is really just for us, for us
Therapy.
to figure some shit out.
Right.
But yeah, I've always loved something we both share a love for is Japanese mythology. So I wanted to check out Neo, Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox, one of my favorite games.
Great game.
Ever.
Fantastic game.
First and only time. Actually, no. I've thrown my controller 2 times. One was in Ninja Gaiden against Alma.
Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Second time was Demon of Hatred in Sekiro.
Sekiro, yeah.
So I think everyone listening who knows those games could understand.
There's a certain pain, and it's deep. Probably still feeling it.
Yeah, I'm unwell, but that's neither here nor there. And I love Neo. I played the shit out of it. Probably 150 hours, did all the DLC. And I just couldn't get enough. And my exploration of Souls-likes kind of went from there. I went to Hollow Knight, to Sekiro, to Elden Ring, some other
Great
stuff.
games.
So kind of a non-linear path, perhaps, in how some people might find the Dark Souls series.
Right.
But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like typically when you're talking about Souls games, people's first one may be the Dark Souls series, if not Demon Souls initially. I didn't have a PS3, so I didn't get to play Demon Souls. There was no way my grandma was buying me a PS3. That thing was, what, $600 when it came out? $700?
Something like that.
My grandma was already whooping my ass talking about me begging her for an Xbox 360. And that's kind of where it started. Xbox 360, Dark Souls 2. I can't remember the name of the boss, but there's a wolf boss in this game that absolutely whooped my ass. My cousin introduced me to this game. And if I remember right, Dark Souls 2 is like 2012, I think, 2011. My cousin introduced me to this game. He's like, hey, Levi, you got to check out this game. It's really good. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm super strong. I'm kicking ass. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I start playing it. I get bodied super early. I'm like, you said this is fun? Eventually, I sort of found my way, long swords all the way. Hit the wolf boss, got my ass whooped. My cousin beat the boss for me. I was like, there's no way. I believe I had save scum, so I could try it again myself. Save scum, tried it again, whooped the boss's ass, and I was like, this is amazing. So it kind of went from there. Dark Souls 3, Neo games, obviously. Love Neo 2. Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Sekiro, Elden Ring, you know, all the classics, so to speak.
It's funny, like the way we talk about this, I feel like I'm giving like my qualifications, you know, as like a
Souls card, yeah.
Yeah, a Soulsbuds, like, here you go, sir. Or like it's a job interview. It's like, oh, sorry, we're looking actually for like mainline series experience for this role. I was like, but Hollow Knight.
But I played FromSoft games. I just didn't play those ones.
Sorry, not what we're
Not
looking
what
for.
we're looking for. You don't have the right qualifications. Unfortunately, it's not a match.
You're not a true gamer, alas.
Rip.
Gamer card.
Revoked.
Yeah, it do be like that. So, okay. Actually, before we transition, so Dark Souls 2, that's actually kind of an interesting entry point as well, because what I've heard about that one is that, like, you know, these are all really excellent games, but I've heard that's, like, a lower point of the series, Dark Souls 2.
I mean, for me, I thought the Dark Souls 2 was, and again, I didn't play much of Dark Souls 1,
Right.
so I didn't have a comparative point. I didn't play Demon Souls. I missed Dark Souls 1, jumped into Dark Souls 2. I thought the Dark Souls 2 was really good. I thought thematically it was really interesting. I thought the world was really cool. I thought the combat was good. I played a little bit of Dark Souls 3, and I thought that was not the best, so I kind of bounced off of that one. And I feel like that's the one that people equate to as not being that great, Dark Souls 3. I think Dark Souls 3 is considered the low point, and Dark Souls 2 is, at the very least, a solid game.
Okay, see, I'm learning something already from
Yeah.
you. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah.
It's definitely, I think, like, the most FromSoft game FromSoft has made, in that, you know, when they talk a lot about
Dark Souls 2.
Dark Souls 2, yeah. When they talk a lot, when FromSoft, Miyazaki talk a lot about sense of pride and accomplishment, these sort of darker, grittier themes, you know, exploring storytelling through itemization, customization, and things like that, weapon descriptions. I think Dark Souls 2 really does that well.
So they established some tropes, not tropes, but like they really leaned into things that they continue to build on going forward. And we're going to talk about later with the Switch 2 and the Duskbloods and the like. But
The Duskbloods.
But, you know, before that, as you keep getting to know us, right? You
Right,
know,
right,
I thought it could be fun for us to do one love and one hate about this whole genre, you know, the Souls-like games. Now, would you like to start with? Would you like to get negative first? I'll let you choose, Levi. Negative first or positivity? What are you feeling?
You know, let's start with the negativity.
Okay, good.
This might be a cop answer, but I don't care. Environmental damage. And really, I mean stuff like water. Like, you fall into the water and you're instantly dead. That really sucks. I can't swim. I can't swim. Like, okay, fine. I can't swim. But all of my health, I just drown. I like Wolong Fallen Dynasty because in that game, when you fall into the water, you're down to at least 1 health, so it gives you a chance to come back. And then if you get hit, or I guess if you fall into the water again because your shoes are slippery or whatever, then you're dead. But just immediately dead, I don't like that.
I don't think it's a cop answer necessarily, and I think that's an answer that goes in a way to, you know, the very intentional level design of a Souls game.
Right.
Like, kind of, I think we were even just talking a little bit before we hopped on recording that, like, Souls-like games very much funnel you into situations, sometimes environmental hazards in which you have no choice but to pass through them, and it could just feel like total arbitrary bullshit at times. And,
Definitely.
And, you know, if I'm walking over a rickety plank over water, I'm not feeling great, honestly.
Absolutely. When it starts like shaking, you know, seeming like it's going to give out, that's when I start panicking. It's not always the boss. Like, yeah, the boss is terrifying. They're supposed to be. I expect that. I don't expect to drown instantly. So that's my hate. That's my one thing that I hate.
In some stages, the boss is the reward. Like, you made it.
Yeah. I'm saying sometimes in those water levels, you hit the end where it's like an open area before you go through the fog door, through the door, and you have your like bonfire right there or whatever. You're like, yes, I survived the boss which is the level.
No, I absolutely despise all of the water stages, probably in every Souls-like game ever.
Always.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good one.
Certified water hater as I take a sip of water.
Yeah, I did. When you first mentioned water, I did a Pavlovian dog response. I was like, I would like some water, actually. I was like,
Oh, yeah. And then now you're dead. Instantly dead.
Okay, so my hate. No, I think this is actually more of a From Software thing. I cannot necessarily prove this out over all Souls-likes, but I absolutely despise the gameplay mechanical execution of quest lines
Yes.
in these games.
Absolutely. Because they're so arbitrary.
Arbitrary is exactly the word. And I don't know how we ended up saying the word arbitrary already quite a few times.
Right.
But I suppose in a way that's a little bit telling.
I think that's that gives you exactly what you need to know. They're just arbitrary. They make no sense.
I could go on, but I'm thinking of in particular Ronnie's questline in Elden Ring, or
that one takes forever too.
Or one of the most tedious things I've done in my gaming life, getting the most involved ending of Sekiro. It's like the Severance ending or something. I don't even remember. You got to get dried snake skin and snake viscera from multiple different places, and you got to eavesdrop at the right time. And,
that's so complicated.
It
requires so much.
I know. Anyone who's listening who's played, I think, not just Sekiro, but any of these From Software games, I think knows what I'm talking about. That it's just so easy to lock yourself out of progress.
Oh, definitely. Like if you accidentally attack someone, they might be dead, or they'll lock you out of the quest because now that you've aggroed them. If you miss an item, then it's easy to not complete it.
Or how about even just go to the wrong, or advance too quickly, go to the wrong place at the wrong time. You've now screwed up your quest line, or
the person teleports because of that for some reason, or you progress too far and now they have a sickness and then they die when you were supposed to complete the quest earlier.
It always just goes back to and again, I won't give a specific example off the top of my head, but there are just so many times while playing From Software Souls games in relation to these quest lines, I mutter to myself alone in my room at 2 a.m.
You're going crazy, Schmeagle.
How was I supposed to know that? Just how the fuck was I supposed to know that?
Just really upset, sitting there I didn't know.
I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
And then I look at the walkthrough, I'm like, okay.
I guess.
Sure. Whatever you say.
So if that's the thing that you hate, what's the thing you love?
Well, you want me to go back to back? Okay.
Yeah, just right back to it.
Yeah, let's double up. There's a lot of directions I could go here, because clearly we love these fucking games. We're doing a podcast about it. I just remembered.
Masochists.
Yeah. We mugged to the camera there. We're going to develop video as we go on. But yes. Right. So, yeah, I'll go back to back here. My love is... Oh, it's a feeling, Levi. I can't get enough of it.
I love feelings.
Tension.
Okay.
The tension that is inherent to all Souls-like games.
You feel it on your shoulders. They perk up. You're just like, I don't know if I'm gonna do this.
It can be so many things. It could be walking across water. It could
not
be
the water.
Not to get you back on that again. It could be, going back to retrieve your souls or what have you on a death run.
Right. That's precarious.
Very precarious. It could be you're exploring a new stage and you're on your last legs. You got one health flask left. You're near the end, but you don't know how far.
Right. Oh, that's the worst feeling.
I play Souls games a lot how I think I would navigate a horror game in some ways. I'm checking the corners like crazy.
They are horror games. I mean, I go in blocking instantly, because you never know who or what might come jumping out at you.
That's smart.
I walk in and I dash back.
That's a good strategy. It also can translate into, the tension thing. Again, I'm on the last health of a boss that's on his last legs too. It's we're in the last phase. I know all this person's moves. If I could just get over the finish line.
Right.
So
that's a good answer. Good answer.
Oh, thank you. Good answer. Was that
Good answer.
to our friend Jesse Valley.
Jesse, if you're listening, shout out to you, Jesse.
They're not. You know, that's just the fix I can never get enough of.
The drug,
The tension, the
high, the euphoria.
the pressure. That's what I love. What about you?
Okay. I think similarly, there are a lot of ways to go. You know, immediate answers that come to mind are things like the world. And it could just be any of the worlds, because I'm always fascinated by the worlds of the games, from Neo's Japanese mythology to Wolong's Chinese mythology to Dark Souls's sort of Victorian Gothic mythology. But I think to go along with feelings, right? Let's keep a theme here. It's the release. You're talking about the tension, the sort of build up, that anticipation. God, this sounds like a sex podcast. What happened?
God, I'm getting a little. Okay. Some more water.
Yeah, right. Gotta cool down a little bit. Hold on. Is it getting hot in here, or is it just me? Anyway, no, really, it's the release. That moment when you kill the boss, or you kill that tough enemy, that elite enemy, that the enemy who's hoarding your souls, guarding your souls. When you have that sense of pride and accomplishment, and you finally beat that boss that's been kicking your ass 20 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, it's one more hit. You've got maybe 25, 20, 15% life. You have no heals. You go for a trade, and because you hit your button first, you hit them and they die before they trade with you, so you die. Mm-hmm. And it just says, enemy vanquished.
Mm-hmm. That big text, you know.
Enemy vanquished.
Yeah.
And then you can just breathe. Like all the tension just releases, and you're just left with this high. I think it's that release for me. I really love that particular moment. Whether that's getting my souls, killing the boss, killing a tough enemy, making it through the level, just surviving.
I find it actually really fascinating that we take like the opposite ends of it a little bit. I was like, I love the tension leading up to it. You're
I
like,
love getting my ass whooped.
And you're like, I can't wait for it to be over. It's truly, we're taking
the dichotomy of us, the heaven and hell.
Pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
Interesting. I'll take hell. I don't mind.
Hell is nice sometimes.
Oh, man. No doubt.
Caled.
Well, okay. So those are our loves and hates, and I really like where we went with those. I think we're gonna take a little break now, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about the big news.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? The big news.
The big news. The Switch news.
Bingo. Switch 2 news.
Are we switching? Switching it up.
Oh, that should have been the transition. It's even written here on the.
That's the stuff. Welcome back, Soulsbuds, to the Soulsbuds podcast. It's Levi, it's Eric, and now we're going to be talking about the Switch 2, right? Switching gears, switching things around.
I see what you did. Yeah, the Switch 2.
The Switch 2.
Have you heard of it?
I have not heard of it.
You're lying, though. We're about to talk about it.
Of course I've heard of it.
I shouldn't have even asked you a joke that set you up for that. So
we'll just keep it going.
We'll keep it going. Switch
2, yeah. I believe it was April 7th. Nintendo did, and it was like an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. Nintendo Direct Switch 2 presentation, which announced the Switch 2, the console itself, all of its features, exclusive games, things like that. And of course, this being a Soulsbud podcast, a Souls cast, if you will, we are going to talk about the Duskbloods. We're going to talk about Elden Ring. But before we get there, we want to talk a little bit about the Nintendo Switch 2. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, let's kind of take this, again, like we did the last segment, one non-Souls thing we loved or really enjoyed of what we saw. One non-Souls thing we hated or didn't love that much. And one non-Souls thing that made you go, huh? You know?
Huh?
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 Nintendo's always good for a couple of those.
Nintendo. Doesn't quite work. I'll go ahead and start, I guess.
Sure.
I think I'll start with the because it was definitely Final Fantasy VII Remake. Remake Integrate, that's sort of the main game, Final Fantasy VII Remake with the Integrate expansion that let you play as Yuffie is coming to the Nintendo Switch. I found that interesting.
Now, so this was, I'm not a Final Fantasy person, as evidenced by this question. Who's Yuffie?
Yuffie is the Kunoichi of the game. She has that gigantic shuriken that she carries with her and is like obsessed with materia.
This was a spin-off game?
I believe this is the full game with that DLC.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Integrate is like an expansion to Final Fantasy VII Remake that adds to the main game. So if I remember right, I mean, we should probably look it up, fact check us if we're right.
No.
But I'm pretty sure this is the whole Final Fantasy VII Remake from 2020 or 2022, whenever it came out, plus the Integrate expansion, which again, crazy, because that's a gigantic game with tons of detail, graphics, high def, or whatever.
Right, you're right.
Open world, monstrous action adventure RPG.
So what made you go, huh? Why'd you go, huh?
For that reason. Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Nintendo Switch is just really shocking to me. Like, I didn't expect the Nintendo Switch 2 to have the power to run that particular game. And while I'm sure it's not going to run as well as it did on the PlayStation 4 or as did as the PlayStation 5, that they got it on the system, I was like, oh, okay. Nintendo's powerful out here.
Okay, all right. So we took the huns in different directions. You're like a, huh. You're like a pleasantly surprised,
I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, I assume you're more of like a, what the fuck?
That's my huh. And why don't I tell you what it is?
Yeah, tell me your huh.
My huh during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct was actually the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Did you see this?
Yes, the Welcome Tour with that, I think it's like $8 like game thing.
$10.
$10.
Digital only. Hey, available on launch. How about that?
June 5th?
Yeah, June 5th. Whoever can get their hands on the Switch 2.
Yeah.
And we should, and definitely we'll talk about later. What are our plans on picking it up? How soon we want to get it? But yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. I mean, I'm watching the Direct. And Nintendo's just on their Nintendo bullshit, man. Like, I respect it in some respects, but, like, it's part of their Direct where, like, they're like, Mr. Kawamoto is like, hey, I'm in
I'm in the game.
And I'm watching this at home like, here we fucking go. Like, all right.
At first I was like, that's pretty cute. That's cute.
It is cute. But then I was like, oh, it's not free.
Yeah, that's when they lost me. I was like, that seems really interesting. Like a free type of game that comes loaded on Nintendo Switch, shows you things about the Switch. Could be fun, could be cute. And then the price. I was like, oh, it's paid?
Yeah, it's paid. It's paid, online download only game. And, as the title suggests, it gives a welcome tour of all the new features that this Nintendo Switch 2 boasts.
And for that reason, you would expect it to be free, right?
Who knows what to expect anymore nowadays, right. Levi? But it definitely just struck me as a because I'm like, because I watched the full 26-minute Nintendo Treehouse gameplay thing of this, and it's tough even when the Treehouse people are really trying to pump it up a little bit. They're like, yeah, there's some tech demos, there's some mini games, there's really like a pretty good amount of replayability in here. I'm like, you guys
replayability.
Like, you guys are
really pushing it.
They got to sell it.
That's true.
It's all good. My main question was just like, who is this for? Who is this even for? Someone who wants to really learn how HD Rumble 2 works? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Or mice, really?
Yeah, I actually know how a mouse works. Thank you.
One thing I loved, right? Because it's loved, hated, and
Loved, hated, yeah.
Mario Kart World.
Mm-hmm.
Mario Kart World. I thought that was really cool. That's my love. I'm fascinated by the idea of like an open world Mario Kart game that's I don't believe it's exclusively online. I can't totally remember.
I hope not. It better not require an online connection.
That would be wild if it did. But as a big Mario Kart 8 Deluxe fan, I'm looking forward to another Mario Kart. So I think, the way that they're taking this Mario Kart world, like the aspect of racing from one race to the next or from one track to the next track. You
Oh,
know?
the knockout tour thing.
Yeah, the
I thought that
knockout
was
tour.
cool.
That's cool. Yeah, you can once you finish a track, you actually have to drive to the next track instead of it just kind of like black screening to the next track. So that part is interesting because you can race through there. The knockout stuff is cool. Yeah, I'm just really fascinated with Mario Kart.
I'm looking forward to just driving, you know?
Just driving.
Just driving or like checking out some YouTube
Can't
videos.
really do that in New York, you know? Can't really just drive. So, yeah, like to just drive. What's your love?
Yeah, my love is Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Yes. DK.
Donkey Kong. DK.
Donkey
Donkey Kong is here. He's the leader of the bunch.
There we go.
You know him well.
Some N64 Donkey Kong. Love it.
Real DK. This Kong has a funny face. Lanky Kong.
Lanky Kong, yep.
I was like, what the fuck? Like, that was my guy, Lanky Kong. I was like, why y'all clowning?
No, he was actually really cool in that game.
Oh, he was
He was
so
like
good.
super. He was like one of the best to play as. Actually.
Long reach. Oh yeah, I totally agree.
The way he like walked on his hands.
I love that fucking.
Okay, we're set. Let's
okay.
get back to it.
So
So Donkey Kong Bonanza, huh? Why?
I love this mainly because like it just captures the spirit of everything I love and appreciate about Nintendo. I think the Donkey Kong series especially has never shied away from like just putting itself out there, like trying some weird stuff like DK Rumble, you know,
Right.
with like the bongo drum accessories and just their art style and their design of the enemies and the stages. It's just lighthearted. It's fun. It's goofy. The
cool
new-
that he's super strong that he could just punch through the rock.
yeah, destructible environments.
Kind of Mario Odyssey esque.
Mario Odyssey. I was also just like Red Faction, but fun.
Oh,
Or not fun. Red Faction is fun. I'm sorry. Producer Artem just gave me a glare. He likes it. Yeah. Red Faction, but goofy. You know,
Red Faction but goofy. Goofy
Lighthearted.
Faction.
Goofy Faction. Oh,
Yuck. Well, I love that. Yeah, Donkey
Disney
Kong
just
Bonanza.
sued us. Sorry.
Podcast is over. You died. Sound.
Yeah. Oh no, don't do it. But yeah, just the vibe of the new models. I thought it was actually DK Jr. at first. I didn't realize that was Donkey Kong because my man looked tired.
Yeah.
He's got sunken eyes. He looked like me.
He did. I was like, did they model this after Eric?
Yeah, I know. But
It's a trip.
I do look good in a tie. But
No, that's true. That
And-
definitely looked fun. Like I can see how enjoyable, very lighthearted, low key.
it just looks like good, clean fun.
Yeah.
You know, a Nintendo platformer with like a novel idea. I'm curious to see what they do with destructible environments. You're right with a little bit in Odyssey, but I don't think they've expanded it out quite this much before.
Right.
And you know, from the gameplay video, they're talking about how different kinds of surfaces will give you optionality and like what you can do. And so it almost felt like someone played a lot of Minecraft in a way. It's like, let me try
Yeah.
this. Let's try this with Donkey Kong. So yeah, that's my love. What was your dislike, your hate?
Expensive games. They're $80.
I mean, you talked about Mario Kart World. That's
$80 for digital. Okay. So when they were announcing all of the games, you know, Legend of Zelda, there's a new, what is it, Hyrule Warriors. I love the original Hyrule Warriors. That was a great game. Love Age of Calamity. That was also another good one. So they've got a new Hyrule Warriors coming. Mario Kart World, Duskbloods. We'll get there. All these games they've announced, but of course they didn't announce the price during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. So I was curious to know what the games were. Like,
Smart.
Very smart of them.
they did like the equivalent of the Friday news dump. They're like, by the way, here's a press release of how much they cost. Buy.
Exactly. Literally, they just like slid this on the table and then sprinted out. So, you know, I was curious. We were already at $70 on like Xbox and PlayStation with certain games. So I was like, are they going to do typical 60? Are they going to go to 70? No. Press release drops. I didn't even read the press release. I'm watching some YouTube videos. YouTubers are talking about it. $80. And then, again, for the digital. So you want to buy a physical copy? $90. But that's not including tax. So you add the tax on top of that, $100.
It gets up to $90 for physical.
For a physical copy of the game is $90.
Dang.
They said that on the press release.
I missed
80
that.
for digital, 90 for physical. So with that tax, you're paying upwards of $100.
And wasn't there?
And there's nothing in the box.
right.
There's never anything in the Nintendo Switch
What's
box.
in the box? What's in the box?
All you what's in the box? All you get is the plastic box with the slip the artwork slip, right? Because I'm basing this off of of a Nintendo Switch box. It's the plastic box, the slip artwork, and then the cartridge inside, and that's it.
And didn't they change the design of the cartridge?
So it's red.
It's red.
It's red.
Was there anything? I thought there was something else.
No, they said that micro SD cards of a certain type don't work.
I'm getting to that. That's part of my
That's part
hate.
of yours.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
My hate
Yes, your hate.
is linked to this.
Because it's crazy. $80 for games, $90 for games. That's wild.
Yeah, we got somewhat similar gripes. I got an issue specifically. I could talk about the specs and the price of this console, which is $450, and between $60 to $90 for games, as we just or $100 as we just discussed. Here's my hate: 256 gigabyte hard drive.
Yes.
Now, on its face, you're like, Eric, what's the problem with that? Surely that's plenty of space.
I think it's like double the Switch, the original.
Oh, it's more than double, because the original Switch had a 32 gigabyte,
Right.
which was absolute horseshit from the beginning.
Right.
You were basically required to buy a micro SD card to expand your storage. I feel like that is the case once again now.
You think the games are going to be huge?
I think games have just gotten bigger overall, Levi, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, aside from like Call of Duty always being 100 and something gigs, I think like Elden Ring is gigantic.
I mean, Elden Ring probably clocks in around 60 gigabytes. I'm going off of, PC
Right.
Install sizes. And like, I know that Nintendo has like a lot of tricks about how to compress this stuff. And so while it's not as egregious to me as 32 gigabytes when the Switch launched, which was like a war crime, more or less.
That is, on your wallet. That's for sure.
Yeah, on my wallet. I feel like this time around it was a major bummer. If it's a $450, I think you really could have gone $512, in my opinion, because now I think I need to buy an external SD card again if I'm getting a good amount of games on this over the course of its life. If I'm bringing over Switch games, which are backwards compatible.
Not all of them.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Which is absolutely crazy too.
Hey, there's another hate, probably.
Probably.
But, just to wrap up, you alluded to it. I did some extra reading on the accessories. The micro SD card you used for your Switch is not compatible for this one, for this Switch too.
It's crazy.
So just got to buy another one all over again. And but $60 on the Nintendo Store. Don't worry.
Right. I was going to say, because they use proprietary SD cards too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that you can just go buy any SD card. I think it has to be like a specific branded SD card. So like,
they advertised Samsung and SanDisk.
Right.
Which I believe the last time around on the Switch, you had more flexibility in terms of what you could use in there.
So it's so interesting that on top of, making it so that not every Nintendo Switch game is backwards compatible, you have to use specific SD cards. It's almost like it's almost like the PSP. Not the PSP particularly. I think more like the PS Vita. Because there was the PSP, you had the PSP Go, but the PSP could play, I think there were two versions of the PSP. Those two could play the same type of games, use the same type of SD card. Then they came out with the PS Vita, which changed the cartridge so you couldn't use the UMD, which meant all of your PSP games were then obsolete unless you still had a PSP. And then it was the same thing with the SD card. They changed the SD card to make it proprietary. I think it had to be like a specific Sony branded one. Mm-hmm. So then you couldn't use the one from the PSP. So you had to go out and buy a new SD card. It feels kind of like that.
That is some similar fuckery, actually.
It feels like that. It's really strange that and it's $450.
I know.
And the games are $80. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at the time of this recording, the Nintendo Direct has been out for a couple weeks by now, so people have definitely made these arguments, rehashed these, in a million different ways. But, at the end of the day, we're consumers, aren't we? So I think we have a right to complain about, like, what are we getting for our money here?
Right. In this economy?
In this economy. Behind this terrafall.
Behind this... Y'all.
No, we're not getting that. So, some other stuff that came up in this Direct. just, really sweet. We don't have to linger too long on it, but I just think it's awesome that we're getting Elden Ring on the Switch too.
Yeah, I thought that was another fascinating thing. It was like a pleasant for me. Should be really interesting just kind of seeing the sort of vastness of Elden Ring on the Switch. It's like taking a Steam Deck, like an Elden Ring Steam Deck.
I played most of Elden Ring on the Steam Deck,
So
actually.
you'll be right at home with the Switch 2 Elden Ring. Would you play it again? Because you'd have to
Fuck
start
no.
all over.
No,
It's not like a new game plus.
Not gonna play it again. Why would I put myself through that again?
Masochist.
I mean, I would do a new game plus on the Steam Deck, but
Right.
Anyway, we're splitting hairs here. But I just wanted to throw this on the rundown and bring this up because, I just think it's awesome that Elden Ring is going to get into more hands and in the hands of more people who likely would have never, encountered it before or thought of it, and maybe some children can be traumatized.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's frightening. Good luck fighting, the fire giant, right?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
pretty far in. This kid is hardcore, honestly.
Right, very hard.
I think they could handle it.
They're probably better than us, right?
Yeah.
Last thing I'll
Speak
say
for
is
yourself.
last thing I'll say is that, with Elden Ring being on Switch, that game is so much about scale, and I'm so curious to see how the scale of the game sort of adapts on this. What is it, like a 7.9-inch screen or something like that? Obviously, a very, very tiny screen compared to a TV. So, like, what does Margit look like? Like, what does that scale of that fight look like? Fascinated by that. And so,
Interesting to see, Hogwarts Legacy to how well big, expansive open world like that will do. Because, it was just always the joke is like, yeah, it's on Switch, but is it on
is
Switch?
it on Switch?
Is it really?
Right. So I'm just curious to see how the Switch will handle the scale of a proper FromSoft release. And I think that gives the studio some playroom with the Switch hardware. And I think that's exactly perfect segue why Duskbloods is on the Nintendo Switch. I think Miyazaki had some thoughts about the Duskbloods that I'd like to get into. So I think that's why it's on the Nintendo Switch. What do you think? Talking about the Duskbloods.
Yeah, so, we talked a little bit about it before at the beginning of the podcast, but Duskbloods is the Switch 2 exclusive announced on this Nintendo Direct. This was kind of the main surprise of the Direct, I'd say.
Came like towards the end, hit out of nowhere. People thought it was Bloodborne. It definitely gives off Bloodborne vibes. It's very, very Bloodborne.
Can I tell you? I mean, I'm just watching this Direct. I have no idea what's coming up. My first thoughts were like, oh, Bloodborne? I was like, oh, Liza P? Then I was like, wait, is this a Nier Automata game? Because when we see that huge Majora's Mask-esque moon, I'm like, that's Yoko Taro's mask, isn't it?
Right.
And then I'm like, are these guys friends? Miyazaki and Taro, I think they might be. They're colleagues, contemporaries, who knows? But
both creepy little freaks.
I don't know. Yeah. Allegedly, I don't know.
Allegedly.
Do we know that?
No.
Let's throw it out there. Why not? Creepy little freaks.
Creepy little freaks. I mean, that's why they make their games the way that they do, right?
We love their work.
Got to be a little creepy to make that type of game. Got to be a freak.
Oh, no doubt.
But no, that makes sense. I had the similar thought pattern.
And then the guy with the jetpack came out. That threw me off.
I saw that. He was just like, psh. I was like, that's very interesting. Jetpacks in a FromSoft game. Duskbloods, Nintendo Switch exclusive, From Software, Hidetaka Miyazaki is directing. Very much a traditional type of FromSoft game that you would see, with all of that type of flair, but on Nintendo Switch and a different type of gameplay experience.
Levi, let's back up. Let's just kind of say what we know about Duskbloods, which is very early. We have a 2026 release date,
right?
Sometime in the year 2026. Let's just hope we live that long overall. Something to live for, right?
Gives you some motivation to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. It's going to be something that From Software has not done before, a PvPvE.
Yes.
And
player versus environment.
yeah. And, this is I don't know about you, but this is a genre of game I'm not very familiar with. I know people play stuff like extraction shooter type games in which, like, you are competing against other people, but there are also, like, NPCs in the way,
Right.
There's multiple routes towards the objective. So I'm definitely intrigued in terms of, like, the variability that could be introduced into this. But yeah, so what we know is mainly through this trailer that was revealed in the direct, and there was at the time of this podcast recording, there was a creator's voice interview on Nintendo's site with
Yep.
the, From Software. What's his title? Game director?
He's director of this game. Yeah, he's directed most of the games, but he introduces himself as director of the Duskbloods.
Miyazaki.
Hidetaka Miyazaki. Not to be confused with Hayao Miyazaki.
I would love if they worked together at some
I
point.
would love if they were brothers. But if they worked together, that would be incredible.
Could be his dad. No?
That's possible.
Miyazaki. Miyazaki's old.
That's true. He is old. Could be his dad. But no, if they work together, that would be great. Some Studio Ghibli From Software stuff would be creepy. But yeah, there was the trailer, the interview gave us a little bit of background on what to expect from this type of game. Of course, I don't think we have to say it, but maybe we should. It isn't. From Software, it will not be transitioning exclusively to multiplayer-only games going forward. They said it. Miyazaki made it very clear that this is an experiment for them and that they will still be working on games like Elden Ring. So,
Right.
of course, we have to just put that out there.
Yeah.
It's been said, but it's worth saying again.
Yeah.
So no fears.
I feel way better. Thank you.
Of course, you're
and-
welcome.
And I think you bring this up too because, as usual, the internet is concerned about something.
Has a way of just running away with with falsehoods sometimes.
Yeah. And so, people are saying like, oh, man, between this and Elden Ring Night Rain coming out next month, which is well, what's that one? That's
I'd say it's
more of
the
a
same
co-op.
thing. Oh, well, yeah, actually, that's co-op.
That's a
It's
3-player PvE co-op roguelike kind of, which I'm
Exactly.
sure we'll talk about more in a
in a future episode, definitely.
future episode. But yeah, some people are just like, oh, is From Software even a single player company anymore? And like
Yes.
people are just very worn out. I mean, me too, by live service games and the economics of such. But,
Yeah, especially this whole extraction shooter. I want to kind of back up to that because I found that very fascinating. Miyazaki did mention Escape from Tarkov, especially during the interview, that he was really influenced by that game. Of course, extraction shooters aren't new, but they're super popular now for some reason because of Escape from Tarkov. And now you've got Destiny Studio, Bungie, creating a extraction shooter with Marathon. So like seeing this type of multiplayer focus could be concerning, but I think with the Duskbloods and Miyazaki especially saying that they're still focusing on single player, and with the Duskbloods having a quasi single player experience within its multiplayer focus, I don't think that there's anything to worry about.
And you're referring to what Miyazaki talks about in the interview, and that there are kind of like multiple ways, victory points, I think he calls them.
Yeah, like different ways to win that don't require you to like engage in combat or like kill another player or anything like that. I think that stuff is very fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of jargon in there, obviously, because this is From Software game. There's like,
Right.
You play the Bloodsworn, and there's like
The Bloodsworn, yeah.
vampiric warriors or
Romanticism,
Sure.
and things like that.
And I feel like these interviews crack me up sometimes because like they're meant to. I'm talking about these Nintendo creator voice interviews because like they're meant to simulate like an interview is actually there asking questions, but it's just like they're basically just talking to themselves.
Literally, yeah,
And,
yeah.
one of the questions in there is something like, "Seems like blood is really important in this game,"
Duskbloods, Bloodsworn.
and Miyazaki's like, "Yep." Basically, he's like, not literally, but thematically,
yeah.
blood certainly comes into play. It's like, yeah, we know the guy likes blood. Okay?
Yeah, of course. Like, come on, Bloodborne. Like, we've got it.
And there is a good question there too from Nintendo's PR people or whoever, where they're just like, so who are the Duskbloods? What does the Duskbloods refer to? And it is a confusing answer, I must say.
What is
like,
the Dusk of Blood?
It's something like, yeah, so the Bloodsworn are Duskbloods, and you'll find out more about that. And, I read that. I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's early. I don't care. I'm confused already, but it doesn't matter. Seems quite interesting for sure. I mean, we'll be excited for it.
Yeah. I thought that something else that was fascinating, when they were talking about one of the PR people in that Nintendo interview was like, I've never heard of a.
I don't actually know if they're PR people, by the
Right,
way. I'm just
right.
being an asshole. But
We don't know.
yeah.
But whoever asked the question to Miyazaki was like, because they do those like statements where you kind of try to keep the conversation going. They were like, I've never heard of a experience quite like the Duskbloods insofar as PvPvE from a FromSoft perspective. And I immediately thought of Naraka Blade Point. I don't know if you've heard of this game. I don't know if you've played it.
Not played.
It is action adventure game, PvPvE experience, but that's just more of like a traditional battle royale. There isn't, there's bosses in that game that you can fight. You can team up with other players to kill them. There's duos, there's trios, there's solos, but it's not like you beat the boss and then you win the game. You still have to be the last player or last team standing. So
Right.
FromSoft has a unique spin on the formula, but I think it's something that will be familiar for people who've played like a Fortnite.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should be too surprised to see something like this from Miyazaki since he is so fascinated by multiplayer games.
Yeah, and I think there's something to you're a big story development
Right.
studio like From Software. You got a bunch of talented people under that roof. People like to try new things,
And that's definitely what this is, right? Like a little experiment, trying something new.
They don't need to make the same game for forever, Like, unless Bandai Namco's, has a gun to their head. Maybe they
Maybe
do.
Sony.
Maybe they're, I don't know. But, something else I thought was kind of interesting as we, start to wrap up here. Just reading about how the game will play out. Like you go into a lobby, you customize your character,
Select your role.
you go in and people are like, I'm hearing this, I'm like, okay, a bit Fortnite, but also like FromSoft Fall Guys kind of. It's a little bit because they're talking about customizing their characters and stuff and I don't know.
You could change the appearance and things like that. It's a little interesting. I think for me, right, like if I could just say what I'm most excited about with regards to the Duskbloods is seeing how they take the design elements of the game and incorporate it into their next major release. I don't want to say that we would get a co-op FromSoft game, but maybe in the future, maybe if there's like a Bloodborne 2,
Yeah.
probably won't ever happen, but maybe if there's a Bloodborne 2, maybe they'll do like a 2-player version where it's like you can play it solo, but you can play it with another player and you both can kind of go through this experience together since they're spending some time with this, honing their multiplayer elements of it. I think every FromSoft game has had multiplayer in some fashion, whether that be invading or with Night Rain co-op.
To that same point,
something there, though.
Yeah, I like that point you made in terms of we may learn something about the next game via whenever we get Duskbloods.
Right.
I think we might learn a good amount about Duskbloods when we get our hands on Night Rain because I feel like there was at least some overlapping development here, perhaps, and
I would imagine, right?
And they're going for somewhat similar things. So yeah, I'm intrigued by the event system they talked about.
Yes,
where we get that big Yoko Taro moon and games like these will live and die on, I used the term before, the variability as you might get in any match or the modifiers, what crazy shit will happen.
Right.
That's from software coded that we'll all, love and, love dying to that we'll see. And definitely intrigued. 2026.
2026. No month, no day, just 2026. But I think for that reason, right? You buying a Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, great question. Is Duskbloods being a Switch 2 exclusive?
Is that it?
I'm going to buy a Nintendo Switch 2. I am in zero rush or have any real burning desire for the next year and a half or so.
So no day one. You're not standing in line June 5th at a GameStop.
Absolutely not.
Everyone else sweating to get one. And you're not one of them.
And here's why. I approached it kind of the same as how I felt about the original Switch. I was interested at the start, at launch, but I felt like I just needed the Nintendo game that I was really waiting for to come out. And for me, that was Smash.
Okay.
And so when Smash came out, that's when I got my Switch, actually.
Right. That actually makes sense. Big, huge party game, big fighter, tons of great characters in it. DLC now has everyone.
Yep.
Makes sense.
That's what I wanted. And that's my same feeling for the Switch, too. You know, when Smash coming out, that's when I'll get it.
Is Smash coming, though? Because I don't think Masahiro Sakurai.
What the fuck? What?
What?
Really?
Yeah, I don't think he's working.
There's no more Smash?
No, I don't. I think Smash Ultimate is the ultimate.
We're not getting any more Smash?
No, I don't think so. No, I think he's done. I think he's moving on to Kirby. That's actually a perfect place for it. Yeah, no, I think Smash is done. For real. I'm pretty sure. I believe there was a point where I wrote about it, and he said that he was done with Smash for now. Not that it's not a possibility, but that I think he's focusing on other games.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that shakes out.
We'll see how that shakes out. I can't imagine
let me amend
Switch.
Let me amend my answer then. I know, right? That's why I said
that would be insane.
I'll amend my answer then to I'm going to wait a year.
Year.
Release.
That's fair.
Because as we may have mentioned before, I have a Steam Deck. Not many people do. It's not a popular device necessarily, but
It's expensive.
It's expensive. Yeah. I mean, $400 versus $450 now. So
True.
actually, it looks way better. Yeah.
That's true. And it doesn't just play Nintendo games.
It doesn't just play Nintendo games, but this is not a Steam Deck podcast.
No, it's not.
That's next episode, maybe. I'm going to wait a year. I don't have a burning desire for it. What about you?
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm going to get it. This being a Soulscast, this being a Soulsbuds podcast, this being a podcast about Souls games, of course, I have to get the Nintendo Switch too. That FromSoft, right? The Souls studio is making a whole new Souls game on a Nintendo Switch 2 on another console. It's exclusive. Mm-hmm. It's like the PlayStation 4 with Bloodborne. I already had a PlayStation 4, so Bloodborne made sense. But Bloodborne, PlayStation 4 exclusive. You got to get a PlayStation 4 to play that game. If I want to play Duskbloods. Wow, Duskbloods.
I kind of like Duskbloods.
I like Duskbloods.
Are you going to get it right away, though?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Not right when it comes out. I think I'm going to wait for the Duskbloods to get a more firm release date. Mm-hmm. 2026 right now is very vague. So I think as soon as, maybe Game Awards comes around December, they announce it's like a summer game, maybe I'll start thinking about it early 2026, maybe this time next year.
Yeah.
But when it gets in a more firm release date, that's when I'll start considering it. Mm-hmm. But I have to get it for Duskbloods.
Yeah, like Mario Kart World is a worthy launch title, but
I'm almost enticed by it.
Yeah.
I'm almost enticed by it.
But not quite.
Not quite.
So we're both going to wait. We're going to wait and see it because we're savvy consumers. Basically.
Because we're broke consumers. Like, let's be real. We're broke.
We're broke.
No, we're just being patient. Waiting it out. Waiting it out.
Let's go with that. You can find us on all social media platforms at SoulsbudsPod and soulsbudspod@gmail.com. If you want to see something covered on the show, shoot us an email.
Send us your clips of your funniest, worst deaths. Maybe we'll do some reactions.
I didn't even think about that. All right, well, so that will do it for us today. Thanks for joining us, folks. And we're going to rest at the bonfire, buff our stats, and prepare for the boss fight of life. Soulsbuds, signing off.
Bye. I love that death sound.